Hi everybody, welcome to week 2. I will be releasing your grades for the discussions from last week shortly. I take a lot of time in grading, so you'll find that I either provide you with an audio or a video like this pretty much each week, and then when I grade your responses or your work, I typically will at least do an audio and go through it. I find it a little bit better than typing everything because, if you think about the volume of grading that I have and the importance of giving personalized feedback from my point of view, that is the reason behind the effort. Which brings me to my first point. The video that I recorded, the introductory video for the course that contained a lot of the expectations and some very important points about the material and why we do things the way we do. There were only 5 video views on that, and we have, at that point last week we had 11 people, now we have 12. That is a very substandard showing. I expect all of you to view the videos when I record them and to also listen to whatever feedback I provide throughout the entire course. So when I graded the discussions, there were some things that I'm positive that I mentioned in that video that were overlooked by several people. The first week is always the hardest. So you do need to go out and watch that video and make notes and ask questions if there's something in there that's unclear. Going forward, of course, the discussions are going to be a vehicle for us to vet ideas and to sort of play devil's advocate and bring new things to the conversation. So I'm probably going to focus on that for the most part. Some of the things that I'm going to point out to you, I run all of your writing, I read every word you write, by the way. I run all of your writing through various analyses because I think it's important to know where you stand. At some point, probably next week, I will tell you of these analytics, your writing is on X grade level. So I think this is sometimes something that surprises people. And it's not necessarily that you want to have, really high levels of writing, because then that is more complicated for the reader to understand. I find that my writing can get overcomplicated very easily, but some of the things I'm going to point out to you about your discussions that I've noticed in your interactions are also things that can uncomplicate your writing, as it were. So when I ask questions, numbered questions, or give you bullet points of things in your discussion question in the body, this week it was an overview background kind of a thing with a lot of information, giving you, setting the stage for what it is that you're going to respond to. Don't write your responses in numbers. This is not a fill in the blank question. This is a narrative that you are writing in response to those questions. The questions are guideposts. The questions are things for you to think about, things for you to consider. And when you get finished writing your initial response, ask yourself, did I address those questions? Did I answer them? And it doesn't have to be a yes, no. It's a narrative, and it should flow from one thought into the next and incorporate those ideas along with other things that you're adding to the discussion. So a couple of interesting things. Word count, I know I mentioned that in the video that hardly anybody watched. Yeah, I'm going to keep giving you the business about that. The word count is not like I'm sitting here counting words. I can assure you I have better things to do with my time, and I know you do too. The point is that I'm looking for substance. So when I get a response that's sort of like a one-liner or even, 2 or 3 sentences that has zero substance, from here out, you will get no credit for that. Zero. Last week, for the first week, I kind of gave the benefit of the doubt there, and I only looked at whether or not you responded before the 4th day for your initial response. I didn't deduct points for grammar, punctuation, and coherence and substance and all those things. Citations, none of that. I didn't deduct points for that. That comes later after I've told you a number of times to fix this thing, and you're showing improvements, so I'm not going to deduct points if you're showing improvements. Show me you're trying. It's, not something that happens overnight. That's what I'm saying. The responses to others' postings, you have to look at the rubric and you have to go by the rubric. And again, if I see consistently shorter responses with less substance than what I'm looking for, I'll cut and paste it into Word and I'll check how many words you're writing. That's the only time that I do that. But if you're kind of straddling the line there and barely giving me what I'm looking for and not adding anything new to the discussion, eventually you're going to lose points for that. So keep that in mind. That's the purpose of the word count. The purpose of the deadline is also to stimulate discussion. And regardless of what you've been expected to do in your other courses, the pinnacle of importance, I guess, and the thing that leads us all to have a really good experience in online courses has to do with interactivity. So that being the cornerstone of what we're doing, you will be expected to interactively relate to others. And that means bringing new things to the table. Say we're talking about Uber or self-driving cars or whatever the case is. Check along the left-hand navigation of our course and see that there is a new item that I added. It's tech feeds, I think I called it. And those are things that I curate on a daily basis. I do 2 to 3 hours worth of reading in technology and security. So, I don't catch every single thing that's going on, but for the most part, I will just curate things that I think are important, of interest, and put them out there on that feed. So if you haven't looked at that, that's a really good place for you to get things to add to your discussions. If you don't see anything on Uber or say Tesla or self-driving cars, go out and plunk it into a search and bring something new. I just read this article on blah, and be sure to cite it and reference it. That's the other thing I wanted to tell you. Make sure that anytime you use a statistic or something that's a fact, that you cite it, especially statistics. I teach statistics and research, and it's a pet peeve that people throw around statistics, or what they call statistics, without regard to, what's the quality of the study, what's the quality of the information, where did it come from, who sponsored it, what's their agenda. And it drives me bananas when I can't look at where a statistic came from. So you will need to review or learn how to do in-text citations, which is, the parentheses with the author's name, or the author's last name, and then the year typically. And if it's a direct quotation, then you need to do that as well and look it up. And then at the bottom, when you've got your references, the things that you cited, they're only references if you cited them somewhere in the body, and you need the correct heading. Don't plunk in a URL and call that a citation or a reference. You won't get credit for that, and I will take away points for doing that. So it's your responsibility to make sure that you go out there and check it out and understand what it is that you should be doing to properly cite and reference things. Am I looking for perfection? Gosh, no, absolutely not. I'm looking for effort. I'm looking for signs of improvement. And when I pick your writing apart, I'm merciless. It's just business. It is not personal. I can assure you. This is only because the importance of writing in the employment world is huge. We have to be very concise and very targeted and say only what we need to say. So that's why I kind of pound this. The other thing is too, is that all we have to judge each other on is our work. We don't know each other personally. We don't have any experience interacting face-to-face, one-to-one, in real time with each other. So our work has to speak for us. And so I am truly expecting senior level and college writing and substance and contributions, and you're going to hear this a lot. So work on it. Just keep plugging away at it. and show me that you're giving it a go. And I will help you be better in any way that I can. But the thing I think that I find most disappointing is it's really obvious to me when somebody puts in very little effort. It's obvious from so many different vantage points that that person may not log into the course very often or for very long, and I can see what everybody does, and I know all the tricks for leaving that window active. You can write a little script to sort of automatically peruse the Canvas course, and I know all that too. So over time, these patterns become really clear, and it's obvious. You put in some effort, you get a good result. You don't put in the effort, you're not going to be happy with the grade that you earn. And I stress earn, because grades are not given. So check your rubric. It's the thing we live and die by, but it's no different than following directions, from your employer, or following a technical manual for a piece of equipment that may be very costly or delicate or finicky. When you respond to other people's postings, make sure that you address it to whom you are speaking. So for instance, if I'm writing a response to Taylor, I'm going to put at the very top Taylor, comma, and then my paragraph or a couple paragraphs, and then I'm going to sign my name. Yes, it's a little formality, but it is something that I do expect, and I think that it also helps us go through the threaded replies, really kind of focusing on things that may be directed to us, like maybe somebody asked a follow-up question. I'm going to jump into your conversations this week. The first week I always kind of stand back, and I don't want to suck all the oxygen out of the room. But at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm in there kind of pushing devil's advocate, kind of prompting you for dig a little deeper, asking some provocative questions. And if you don't check in after you've posted on the fourth day, you can't respond to my questions. And I do expect you guys to do that. So again, go back to that beginning video where I'm expecting you to log in and participate 3 times, different times in the week. It's just one of those things that is really important to all of us for our success. A couple of little weird things. Everybody should do this. If you're not already composing your responses in Word and then cutting and pasting them into Canvas, I would suggest that you do that. First of all, it protects your work, and I've lost work on Canvas. It's a dumb thing. It's a dumb thing. I knew better, and it happened, and beat my head against the wall. So that's why I do everything in Word and then cut and paste it. Even if you don't save it, if the power goes out or something, your battery dies, it's going to be auto-saved, and you don't have that within Canvas. So go through your writing each week and search all of the this, these, that, he, she, it, those, they, all of those unqualified antecedents, they're called, in case you need to know that for trivia, and specify what it is referring to. It will be the next big thing. Well, what is it? And the reason we get so picky about that is because you're expecting your reader to remember what you're referring to. And they may have to make an assumption, which is not exactly what you intended to refer to. This reduces the cognitive load for the reader and allows them to focus on the substance of what you're saying instead of trying to figure it out. That's the same thing with punctuation. Just kind of go back and revisit those rules. And if you're not really good at it, you don't have time, you don't want to nitpick through your entire couple of paragraphs, use something like Grammarly. Or of course, if you're in Word, you're going to have the spelling and grammar check that you can use as well. But challenge yourself to make sure that you're trying. Okay, you're improving. Avoid the overuse of quotations. Smartphones, smart bulbs, smart car. We don't need to do that. And why? It's because the language that we speak is about these things. We use it all the time. There's no need for quotes. In fact, it's one of those distractors that I was talking about that can reduce or increase the cognitive load for the reader. Don't give them any more than you have to give them so that they can really think about what it is that you're saying through your writing, okay? Avoid things like literally or really or actually. Those are informal. They add nothing to your writing, and sometimes it can lead to overly dramatic statements as opposed to scientific observations or observations from an arm's length where you're not showing bias in your writing. The tough part about our project, besides some of the things that I've mentioned here, is getting the stand back and view it point of view right. I mentioned before, if somebody has English as a second language, they should be able to at least translate what we've written, if not read it, maybe very slowly. So any sorts of distractors reduce the value of what it is that we're writing. And because all of our workplaces are global and we interact on a lot of different platforms, clarity is of the utmost importance. So paragraphs, I don't want big walls of text. That's another thing that increases the cognitive load or the amount of work that somebody has to do to visually assimilate and synthesize what it is that they're seeing, and then separate, the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, so that they can say, okay, I need to be focusing on this point rather than all of this other noise. It's kind of something that we hold dear and very valuable in design thinking. The extra there's no place for extra. There's just no point in it. And it confounds things and convolutes things, and pretty soon the message or the idea or the zeitgeist, the feeling that the creator is trying to push across, gets lost. All right, so statistics, I mentioned citations, I mentioned all that. I think the biggest thing that I want to see from the substance side is that you're becoming a better consumer of information. You all have opinions, as you expressed in your week one's discussion, and that's good. I think that was what I was looking for. What would make those things a little bit stronger and a bit more robust if you were using these things in some sort of a debate, or if you're trying to make a point and persuade someone, because after all, that's the reason that we write in the first place, is to get our point across, and perhaps a lot of the time to persuade someone, or to at least present this side of the argument or the idea or the concept so that we can be a better consumer of information. If everything you read matched what you just believed, we would call that, a bias. And the thing is that we like things that are familiar. Well, that's great, but we also have to be able to stand back again from that arm's length and think scientifically and say, according to whom? Oh, that's a conclusion. Well, where did that come from? Why did they form that opinion? So including, some of those things that kind of back up what you're saying doesn't devalue your opinion, it strengthens it. And that's also the sign that you're well read in your area, you are aware of what's going on in the field, and that you can present your argument with some degree of robustness, that if somebody wants to refute it, that's great. You may never change their mind. People change their own minds in the first place anyway. So it's not really about that, but it's about presenting your argument in the best light that you can. Otherwise, why do it? It's a waste of time. So get out there and take a look at the video from the first week if you haven't. Again, I don't care who didn't, it doesn't matter, just do it, okay? And then make sure that in addition to this video, you are listening to the feedback that I put within Canvas for your discussion week one. There are, like I said, some other things that I'll do for you as you go along for feedback purposes, and I think it would just be an enormous waste of time for me and unfortunately for you, if you don't take advantage of this. So consider it, you know, that I'm in this game. I'm in this game with you, both feet, all the time. I'm just as engaged as I want you to be, and I wouldn't expect you to do anything that I wouldn't do myself, or that could be considered busy work. Everything you do has a purpose. So uh, I think you all get that, but I think it's kind of important just to reiterate where I'm coming from. As we go forward, things start to move a little quicker. And again, the context of the feedback that I'm providing you is important to understand. It's just business, okay? It's just business. I'm brutal, I'm rough, but the frank point is that when somebody looks over my work, I want them to be rough. I want them to be brutal. It's not me. It's my work. And so that's how my work gets better, is if, people point things out. Lastly, I will be scheduling a WebEx this week. I have to contact technology services about something, and it'll just be sort of a short thing. I mentioned before that I wanted to do this. I know I'm never going to get everybody in the same place at the same time, and it's probably going to be on a Sunday. I really don't like to take family time away from Sunday, but in these courses, I think sometimes it's worth it. It won't be very late in the evening. I'm thinking something like maybe 6 or 7 in the evening. And again, if you can't make it, that's fine. I understand that, but I would encourage you, if you have some questions or you want to meet your classmates, or something like that. It's a good idea. It won't be very long. We'll just check in, and I'll be sure to post that information once I have it finalized. So overall, you did a good job. There was nobody who ignored the assignments for the week, which, it happens in every class. There's always somebody who kind of, jumps out of the boat and goes away, and I never know where they are. And then I spend the next 3 or 4 weeks chasing them. So you're all in the game. I'm happy about that, and I think the level of knowledge and interest and expertise you're bringing to the table is very cool. I'm just going to keep pushing you to be better and better. So I'm excited about where we're going. I hope you are too. Have a good rest of the week, and we'll talk soon.